Welcome, restoration professionals, to Restoration Minutes, your source for industry information and education. Be sure to like and rate us if you enjoy the content we provide.
All right, welcome in everybody to a new episode of Restoration Minutes. Today I've got the one and only Paul Donald from Encircle. I've known Paul now, I guess, going on about 7-8 years, something like that. I think going all the way back to 2017-18, about that time period. Excited to get you on here and talk about some of the great things that you're doing. And I know we have some shared vision on where the industry needs to go. So I think it's going to be a great talk. Welcome in, man.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. You say 7 years, 2017, and I just can't believe how fast the years are going by. But
Man.
it's been great working with you over those years. You've given
Well, I
us a lot of
appreciate it.
good feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's my thing, even though I've moved out of the restoration world and now into the software world, it's really this move came in two parts. And, one, we lost my son last year and we needed a change as a family. But the big thing is like, for the longest time, I've been wanting to improve a lot of aspects about the industry and try to push the industry forward. And, I think the best way to do that, obviously, is with technology. Our industry is stuck 20 years ago. And I'm hearing from other, I hate to say old school consultants in the industry and things like that are pushing back on things that Canada, for example, I'll even mention First on Site, has been doing like digital signatures and digital documentation for 15 plus years. I think since Canada passed their version of what the U.S. has is the e-Sign Act. I think Canada passed it in 2004. U.S. passed it, I think, in 2000. And you can buy a house and everything else with digital stuff and online. But for some reason, our industry is stuck in analog paper systems.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
blows me away.
That and here's an industry that isn't going anywhere. Trust me, this industry is more important today than it was yesterday and the day before and the day before. So, and the industry keeps growing. I mean, more losses are occurring annually. But, what I think you and I'll get into is, restorers have two customers and they're kind of in this confusing spot where they're taking, demands of one entity that is unnatural to their business, and then they're trying to serve the end customer. And it's just a really confusing whack-a-mole to try and run a profitable business. And so
And very much
I
so.
think that you're right on technology has to bring the fundamentals to the business that is incredibly important to every modern economy globally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's kind of start with, real briefly, like, I know you kind of come from the tech sector. What got you into this industry? Because most of us fall into this thing by accident. And so I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
you kind of like tripped over this thing one day or something happened that got you interested in the restoration world. How did that happen?
Yeah, really, if I go back to 1988, my roommate was writing software for the insurance industry, both on the policy management and claims management. And over the past, oh goodness, nearly 40 years, it's scary to say that number, but nearly 40 years, he's built some incredible technology um, that serves the insurance company. But through that, I got to see how chaotic it was because they predominantly work with servicers to deliver the value of the policy.
Mm.
And so, that was sort of the first introduction. Then I also was an electrician, background as an electrician, but
Okay.
installing computer networks and computers, hardware, setting up data rooms, not doing the software side, doing all the hardware side, which used to go to electricians, believe it or not, back in the day. I don't know that we were qualified. I'll just tell you that much.
I'm sure.
to do it.
I went through electrician school straight out of high school. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I did a lot of stuff with things back then that I hire IT people to do now. I don't hire electricians to touch.
Yeah, yeah. But we muddled our way through. But through that, I worked with some of the largest insurance companies and banks, setting up networks for them. And I got to see how chaotic, again, this ecosystem was. And then so I started a software company off of that called PeerDirect, which back in 1993, when the internet was this little known entity, we figured out that that we wanted to build a data replication engine. So if you go back to 1993, most of the insurance companies and banks were sending around tape backups through snail mail. The
Yeah.
data was weeks old, causing a lot of issues. So we said, well, let's build a secure way to move data over the internet change base. So only move the data that's changed around all of the major data centers. And so, wow, what a learning lesson that was. We sold it to Progress in 1999. Wow, talk about being on the bleeding edge and leaving a lot of blood on the floor.
Yeah,
But
that's before, like, good encryption or anything like that existed. I'm one of those old.
users, we were the first users of the elliptical curve algorithm to
Oh,
secure
wow.
data over the internet.
Wow, I what dates me is when I tell people the email that I keep from my personal side, which is still an AOL email. So, but
Still one of them.
it's my name, and it's like I can't get that with anything else. So I've stuck with it for all my personal data all these years. And when I tell people, I get laughed at by young people all the time because it's like, oh my God, I didn't know they existed anymore. Because
Yeah.
I've had them since like 1995, I think, is when I first got my AOL email and put the first computer in one of my stores. I used to own nutrition stores, and
Hmm.
so I get laughed at all the time when I date myself.
Oh yeah. Well, let me move faster into because I mean, being my age, you've got a lot of experience and a lot of stories to tell, and
Yeah.
I could take up the whole time on that. But we sold that to Progress Software. Long story short, I went to this little known company called Research in Motion, which was BlackBerry, and was there from '99 till 2009. And just an amazing journey of transforming how we all communicate.
Yeah.
Back then, it was largely business, but transformed into consumer. And now we've got the smartphone. The insurance industry and the servicers of the insurance industry were big BlackBerry users, restorers, and it's because it allowed you to communicate much more freely from wherever you were. And especially restorers being in a dynamic environment, they needed these tools.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I got to see the disconnect and knowing where the smartphone technology was going with the camera and the phone and how it was going to improve and be a centerpiece of communication. That's what got me to write the business plan for Encircle. And it really was about streamlining the flow of data across the insurance company, the policyholder, and the servicers.
Well, I feel like you definitely have achieved that. I mean, when I was first shown your product by a company I ended up going to work for, when I was with another company, I was like, the learning curve was so easy, and because then pretty much we primarily used it for photo documentation and, some notes and things like that. And now you guys do a plethora of other things, which I'm sure we'll cover a lot of today. But I loved how intuitive it was, and it was like, man, I could teach this to my guys in like 5 minutes. I mean, that was amazing. And so, we went from using our phones and then trying to download files to a Dropbox to now all of a sudden I got this cloud based system. I can walk around, take pictures and speak into it. I can mark up on it because we did a lot of government stuff during that. That was Hurricane Michael. That was the first time I remember actually using your product. The military base, we're at Tyndall Air Force Base, and every single room and every single wall, we had to mark up where the water was to and where we planned demo at.
Restorers only get one chance to capture every must-know detail when they arrive on site, so your field teams need an app they can count on. With Encircle, every field task happens in one app. Photos, videos, 360s, notes, moisture readings, floor plans, contents, even collecting payments. All captured quickly, reliably, and shared with your office in real time. It's everything you need to prove what happened on site and justify the scope of work. So you get paid faster and with less pushback. And soon, the job data you capture won't just justify your scopes, it'll generate them. In early 2026, Encircle AI Scope Builder is coming, transforming your Encircle documentation into room-by-room, ready-to-review scopes in minutes. One app, one workflow, one source of truth. Get started with Encircle today.
It was brutal trying to go back and download the photos and break out my art program and draw on it. And then like within 2 days that changed to where we could stand there and do it on our phones. It was amazing. And I was in love from that point on with Encircle.
Well, thank you. And we are a mobile first. Coming out of BlackBerry, solving inherent business workflow problems, especially where you have a tactile-oriented worker on one end, really required it to be built mobile first. And so that was the intended focus of Encircle. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going to go is, is your strategy, for the company, like you just stated, is all mobile first rather than, computer first, like a lot of stuff is. And I really think that has helped, especially in this industry, because we are so much in the field. 90% of workers in this industry are not at an office or in a desk. They're actually on a job site, or on their way to a job site. So, how has that been harder to program and things like that? As far as, because of your background, you came in head first knowing exactly what you wanted to do.
No, this is bar none. I can tell you without a doubt the hardest software platform I've ever built or been involved in. Just because number one, mobile first is hard in a environment where you have to ensure that it's going to work online and offline. It's going to be usable by non-tech educated users and highly technical users. And you have to be able to blend between the two. And then we literally have 6 very distinct applications that are products in and of themselves in the platform. It feels seamless across them, but we actually have 6 teams that their sole focus is on those products and advancing those products within the platform. So,
You
yeah,
want to go ahead and
incredibly difficult.
explain what those products are for everyone?
Yeah, so you've got your photo documentation platform, which is photos, videos, and now 360, the markup of the photos. Then you've got contents, which is your whole contents workflow. It's not just taking pictures of the contents, but labeling, up tracking, restorable, non-restorable, pricing, non-restorable, finding like-kind quality. You've got Hydro, which is your moisture documentation, which, by the way, that right there, hardest piece of technology we've ever
I
built.
bet.
We're on our 4th iteration. The most money we've ever spent on any piece of the platform is bar none Hydro, but we are laser focused to get it as easy to use and defensible as humanly possible. I think our users are seeing regular every couple of weeks or every month. You're seeing updates to it. We're in a pretty good cycle, but there's years of work yet to do to simplify a moisture mapping. It's still too
Yeah,
complex.
Hydro is amazing. My last company, it was like pulling teeth to try to get my guys to use it, and started making some headway once I started showing them Steve Glosnick, who's a guy we both know at FP down in Florida. I'd sent him on a project that was for one of my clients at a college, and he sent me back the Hydro reports, and I was like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. It detailed, and I was like, telling my guys, I'm like, look, you're being outdone right here with this product. You got to start using all the features that it has. And the Hydro product is definitely amazing. I really like it.
Thank you. And then we've got our forms product, which can take all of your authorization forms, field forms, health and safety forms, and use our digital signature capture on it. That's a whole product. Then there's our whole reporting engine, which is separate, which is what everybody talks about, pulling all of that photographic evidence, your photos, videos, notes into a report that looks good, makes you look good, and stands up to the scrutiny of an audit. That's a whole product of in itself. People
Yeah.
think, oh, that's just easy to build, but it's not, because all of the media in there, like the photos, the videos, the 360, are clickable so that you send it to a user. They can open up this, download the media, they can interact with it. And that's important for you to be able to substantiate what was done on the job without them calling you back and forth. Because if it's just a small little thumbnail, they're going to be like, I can't see enough of that. Well, I need to be able to open up the high resolution, zoom in, pick things out of it, circle things, and it really streamlines communication. And then there's the whole notes part of the platform, which rounds it out. So you got general notes and room notes and contents notes.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you think notes is simple, but it's actually a pretty complex part of the platform, because you can add photos to them, videos to them. You can make these very rich notes. And what we're doing with it in the next phase, everybody's going to go, oh, I see why it's so complex.
Well, I know with the pack outs, I think I called you when I was at well, I don't want to give them a plug really, but that what is now a major franchise group one time. I think this was like back in maybe 2019, something like that. And I was trying to tell them about your product and hopped back to that portion because I kind of not used it because I'd stepped away from my day-to-day stuff. And I hopped back into that product, I guess about 6 months ago. And I was shocked at one of the features that you guys now have, which is the product valuation side of things, where it will like tell you, you can get this on Amazon for $32.15. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Because that's another thing that the adjusters are always wanting to know, for Mrs. Smith's lamp that she says she paid $300 for. Is like, what is it really worth? Because everybody's thing is always worth more because they're wanting to get that insurance dollars. And then there's a depreciation built into it. What is it
Yeah.
really worth? And then the flip side of that is, should I be cleaning that thing if it's going to cost me $50 to clean when they can replace it for $25?
Exactly.
And that's a part that's the reason a lot of the electronics cleaning has gone away over the years. I remember years ago, we made buku dollars off of cleaning TVs and using the thirsty water stuff, and these cleaning machines that we had, to clean everything and then dry it out and put it back together because a flat screen TV was $2,000 and I would be able to charge $500 to clean it. And now you can go buy that same TV for $100.
Yeah. No, across the board, we're a throwaway society. I mean, you look at
Yep.
Shine for clothing, you look at electronics, the pricing has come down. And so now it's just replacement versus clean.
Yeah, which is sad in a lot of ways, but we're not getting into that today. I mean, it breaks my heart that, we're such a trash society. I mean, it's like, yeah, we always want the latest and greatest, but some of the best things I've kept over the years is stuff like a Speed Queen washer and dryer that has lasted for 15 years and cleans better than anybody else's that has this modern crap.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. By the way, I forgot one last really important part of our platform, which is our floor plan scan. So there's lots of
Yeah.
floor plan tools out there, and many of them are really good. But again, our goal, like what we've been talking about, was simple, easy to use, and just works. Doesn't have maybe all the bells and whistles of a Matterport or some of the others, but it's just easy to use and delivers the response back in a really timely manner. So less than 2 hours. And that can be applied to your initial day one 12-hour report, 24-hour report. And yeah, again, it's a couple minutes to scan a house. You don't need a third party camera. You literally just walk with your phone in front of you, the circumference of the house and the rooms, and boom, it spits out a
Boom, is there.
really good floor plan.
Yep, I did. When you guys still had it beta, I started testing that out and really, really liked it. I was thinking I'd used a few other products, prior to that, and they always had problems if there was like big glass doors or big windows, and yours popped them into place right out the gate. And I was like, that's
This episode is brought to you by Helix Co., the most advanced time and material ecosystem for ROMs, time and material billing, job sharing, with digital records and much more. Check us out at www.helixco.io.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because they always had a problem, it seemed like, with depth perception, the older products, because it would like try to look through it to what was on the other side, or it would miss that window
Yeah.
altogether, count it all as a wall. It was either one way or the other. And so you guys seem to, fix that issue with your product. So that was great.
Yeah, I know the challenges like open floor plans
Yep.
without walls, being able to decide, what size of the room and then the how to divide up the rooms.
Yeah. Is this the kitchen or the living room area here?
Yeah.
Well, before we jump into like our philosophy for the industry, you guys just recently acquired the Edge from Tom, and tell us what kind of went into all of that, and what your excitement is about the future. I know you may not want to share everything because you're going to be doing some new stuff with it, but tell us a little bit about that acquisition and how that went down.
I'm an open book even with those who feel we're competitors because there's just so much opportunity in this industry. I call it co-opetition.
Oh yeah,
Let's all
absolutely.
work together to change this industry. Yeah, I mean, I've loved Tom for years. And who doesn't love Tom? Guy's
No,
a
it's great.
stalwart in this industry. He bleeds restoration.
Yep.
And his methodology behind the edge is solid.
Yep.
And comes from his more than 40 years of experience. So where we were in our transition was our goal was always to be the number one field documentation tool that restorers like to use in the field. Now we've got this privilege to transform that data into something that really impacts the restorers in a positive way. So one is we can use our data to automatically fill out the ROM and provide a day one rough estimate goalposts of, hey, here's how much resources I should put on this job. Here's how much equipment. Here's how much materials. And I've always said I want RC owners to be operators. You can't just run around as a tools on your hip guy if you really want to scale a business. You have to start digging into the details of every job. It is a profitable industry if you focus on the details, but you'll lose your shirt if you don't. So the ROM is a way to start bringing attention back to, in a very easy way. Again, take the photos, take your notes as you do in Encircle. It's going to be a single button click to generate a ROM and to know exactly where you stand. Now, it's a rough estimate, so it's within 10%. Then you're going to write your exactimate estimate later, but we want to give you an understanding of what you're dealing with on this job, because too often you're leaving out line items, you're leaving out tasks, you're the insurance company or customers are grinding you on costs. You have to pick up every billable item, and I mean every single one. So the edge is a step in that direction. And then next, our AI scoping goes right along with the edge, because you can't really create a ROM and submit a ROM without the full validation of a scope. And then with the photos, the videos, the notes, the moisture map, the floor plan, the contents listing, it all fits together.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that was shocking to me, I taught a class to about 50 different companies this past August. And, I can go into a ROM and how important that is in the time and material commercial space too, that, is based off a price list versus Exactimate. So, and I know that his product works on both. But the thing that was shocking to me was I asked the question, when you guys go do your commercial projects, whether it's a $10,000, AT&T store that flooded or whatever it is, or a high rise that's, $10 million worth of work, how many of you guys are producing a ROM within like the first 48 hours of being on a project? 4 people raised their hands out of the 50. And I was like, what about a scope of work? And it's the same 4 people. And I was like, do you guys realize that you're not even following the S500? The S500 talks about you've got to have a drying plan, and your ROM, which is a rough order of magnitude for some of you who may not know, is basically an estimate along with the scope of work. That way, if something that's unforeseen or that changes in the process, you can go do a change order and adjust your estimate, so on and so forth. And that can serve, if done correctly, as your drying plan that puts you in compliance. Because I'll tell you, I've worked with a lot of companies over the years, and the amount of pushback that comes back at the end of some of these commercial projects on nitpicky things like that they're going to make you feel like an idiot and try to make you scared that they're going to clean your clock in court because you didn't do a ROM, or you don't have a drying plan, you didn't follow the standards, but you're trying to tell me you abided by the standards in your drying process and the amount of equipment you set. So, it's one of those things you can't pick and choose. If you're going to follow the standards, you got to follow the standards. And so it's great that we've got products out there, that are going to help people, stick with the standards and walk them through the process, because the S500 is a lot to read. I read through it at least once a year just to kind of make sure I'm staying on top of everything. And, it's hard. It's hard, especially with your guys that are in the field. A lot of them may have just now got their WRT certification. They do not and have not actually read the standards from front to back, and there's a lot of information in there. And so that's one thing with tech that's great now is you guys can pull that stuff into one of these large language models. I'm going to give one a plug that I've just started playing with, which is a Notebook LM, which is a new Google product, which is great. It doesn't It doesn't make up things and hallucinate like other AIs does. If you could pull something into it, it's going to spit out and walk you through that very clear and teach you. And so that's an advantage of AI. I definitely think
Yeah.
that will help guys, in the industry.
Now, there's a few points there that you made that are really good. Now, I believe that restorers, for the most part, want to do right by the standards, by the customer, by the carrier. But when you're under the gun, which is always the case, it's always, almost always an emergency, and
That's
somebody needs
emergency
to get this
service.
shop up and running, right? Think about it. Are you going to sit down and read the S500? Are you going to go back to it? Even creating a drawing plan is an administrative task that feels unnecessary when you're trying to help a business survive. But you've got to get out of that hero mentality and get to covering your business interests first. And it's really
Sure.
hard for restorers because they're all hard. They want to do what's right. What we're doing is we're saying, listen, at a bare minimum, get your photos, your videos, your notes, mark out your moisture points, do your equipment calculation, do your floor plan. And you know what? One single button click will generate your ROM and your scope. You can go in and edit the scope. We don't want you to take it as is because it may not be complete. It's probably be 80% complete. And even with your ROM, you want to adjust it. You want to win that business. So, this is your business. Know how to adjust and work things so that you win the business, but that you're also covered and you're going to generate a healthy profit. And that's what I'm hell bent on helping restorers do. But we've got to take that administrative overhead out of the field when the hero is needed.
Yeah,
And that's what
and
gets them into trouble.
and I've worked for every big box brand that you can think of in this industry. I've been doing this 19 years now. And I've also worked for a lot of great independents. One thing that they all had in common is those, especially like during a catastrophic, which, you got your regular loss, which is high pressure. But like you said, everybody's got the hero mentality. Clients want to see action. They want to see stuff moving, and multiply that times 10 when you're in a catastrophic situation, whether it's a flood or a hurricane or a tornado or a polar vortex. Your pressure just went to here, and a lot of us love that adrenaline, by the way, and I miss it now that I'm on this side of the world, but millions of dollars I've seen lost over the years. And I would always go back to the owners of the companies I worked at. And I'll be like, we've got to slow down. You are missing equipment. You are missing consumables. You're missing some labor guys that just showed up late and you put them straight to work. They didn't even get signed in, but we still had to pay the labor bill. I mean, if you don't slow down and properly capture, and that's what I loved about Encircle is like, oh my God, now I can document things in a tenth of the time of what I was doing and kind of go back and backfill later if I need to. But at least I got photos, I've got notes. I could hit the microphone and do voice to text instead of having to try to write things out, because I was called Dr. Mike when I had my nutrition stores. It wasn't because of all of my medical knowledge. It's because when I try to write things down, I look like a doctor's signature. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I've gotten into this new tool now, the Remarkable, which is great. I can go through and handwrite my notes, and then it actually has learned to convert my gibberish into text, but the amount of money that restorers leave on the table, especially in the bigger projects and the commercial and high pressure projects is crazy.
Yeah. Hey, even on the smaller projects, they're missing billable items that are high margin
Yeah.
that are perfectly, they can charge for it, but they're not picking those up. And think about 10 and 10. There's nobody that has an overhead of 10%. Everybody's like 27 to 38%. So you
Yep.
have to pick up all these high margin, and all those little pieces add up. And that's what our ROM and scope is going to do, is it's going to highlight all of those items and just put it in front of you. The other thing too, you mentioned about IAC or C. Now, they don't want you putting the S500 and others into
They
public
don't, because
LLMs.
it's copyrighted.
Yeah, so it's copyrighted. So we're working with them to do a licensing deal where we can incorporate that all in a very effective way directly into our scope. And so that you've got all of the validation, but it also trains the techs in the field because they're going to see the scope. Like I said, you got to review the scope, look at all the details, make sure you're applying the standards appropriately. And then if everything looks good, Great, submit it. You've got a good scope, but while you're there the scope is done while you're there on site. And I don't care how big the project is, it's going to be, a second's turnaround once you've got all the photos, videos, notes, floor plan, moisture mapping, or at least the details of, the extent of water damage or fire damage. Our LLM, which is a sandbox environment, so it's not public LLMs, it's one that we've built. It's secure. All of that information will be able, to be processed and brought back to you for that scope. So saving hours. I think in our alpha, the average is about 3 hours of time saved on the scope.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, about money left on the table. I started teaching a class, golly, it's probably been 8, 9 years ago. It's called Plastic Pays, on things that people miss, and it's like,
Mhm.
that's just one simple thing just to kind of point out on that guys get in a hurry on a project so much, even on the small, especially on the residential ones with the plastic stuff. And they're not protecting contents, they're not protecting floors, they're not, they're going to do demo and they're not taping off and putting plastic over the blinds, and whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
and it's like these guys don't realize that depending on what mill of plastic that you're using, you get paid between 35 and 55 cents a square foot, that kind of stuff, and you're paying like 3 cents.
Yeah.
It's one of those high margin things. This is an example for what you said that guys miss on a job because they're in a hurry, but then they end up getting punished and they got to go back and clean up for free because now they got dust everywhere, and,
You got it.
you should have protected what the adjuster tells you. You should have protected it, but they get in a hurry and they don't do it, or they just lack the training. Paul, I know the next area I really kind of wanted to move into is, moving the industry forward. I know that we both have a shared vision with that. We don't mind. I share and you guys share a lot of things that a lot of people in this industry charge money for. And, you know, to me, it's if we're going to improve as an industry and get treated better, that's the reason I had Jeff Moore on a couple of weeks ago. And, he talked about the big thing that RIA is trying to do now, which is, get us an actual NICS code, and SEC codes from the government to actually be recognized as an industry. And the same thing, I know that you guys and us and, a lot of forward thinking people now in the industry are like, okay, we need to share more because it's these guys here. I don't want to call them bad apples, but they may not have the tools or the education that they need and or utilizing those tools to be where they could be. Why do you think there's such a reluctance to change in our industry, and acceptance of stuff like that?
Well, number one, I think change does cost money.
It does.
You've got to educate your staff. You need to put in place these systems that can allow you to run efficiently. And so there's an upfront cost on that. And one thing I hear regularly contractors say is, I'm slow, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And from my perspective, you don't have the money because you don't have the systems in place. You got to figure out how to get these systems in place so you can operate more efficiently and so that you can market your business better. You can track your field teams more effectively. Because one of the things that guys get pushback on, labor hours and equipment. You can't play around with that. You need to ensure your labor efficiency rates are at industry standard. You need to make sure that they're abiding by the equipment calculations in the these are really important things, and that your guys are out there, guys and girls are working in conjunction to make the company successful. In order to do that and to scale, you've got to have the systems in place. You've got to maintain those systems. You got to have the staff to maintain those systems, and then you've got to train the use and monitor the use by the field team. So that really is the biggest difficulty. But what bothers me, and we've always said, listen, we're field documentation. We're going to let job management be done by companies that are focused on job management. And because there's no one size fits all in job management. As you scale as a restorer, you're going to need different systems. But we said field documentation can be consistent all the way across if it covers all of the necessary tools required in the field and it's maintained and iterated on. But my biggest issue is that people try and sell a one size fits all solution, and it always fails. Always, always, always fails. This is way too complex of of a business to say, I want one system to do it all. I've
Yeah,
got
it's
over
in
a
a
hundred
retail
systems
store,
in a
you
circle.
know.
Yeah, it's not. And by the way, it's not an electrical field service group. It's not a plumbing that only has one customer. Remember, your customer, one of your customers is an insurance company, which is lawyers, actuaries, and accountants. That the only way to service them is through really good data that's referenceable, auditable, and well done. Reads like a children's storybook.
No,
The other
exactly.
one is a policyholder.
And that's one of the things that it's like is mind-boggling to me is the whole embracement of technology. There's still a lot of guys that are using pen and paper out there. And it's like, okay, I understand that that's what you're used to because that's what you've done for 20 years. The fact is that, like you just said, who is looking at your bill? You know, 9 times out of 10, it's not the business owner or Mrs. Smith, that you just did at her house. It is the adjuster and the consultant, sometimes on the larger losses, that are looking at your bill. If you got all this handwritten gibberish stuff that they can't read and it's not backed up by, validation and data, with the standards and things like that, it's going to take them, you might as well be waiting to get paid a year from now because they're going to sit through it. It's going to cost them more money and more time to go through it. Whereas if you have everything in a clean, presentable, organized fashion that is backed up by the standards and validated, one way or another, photographs and time and date stamp things like that, then it makes it much smoother and much simpler. I mean, it blows my mind to this day, and that guys cannot see that in our industry, but yeah, like you said, it's one of those things where they're slow, and I know that that's tough. I've owned my own business before too, and I stayed in business for 7 years, and I get it, but this is where the forward thinking and the strong get stronger is when we have slow times. Claims are down 40% this past year. And I see guys laying off project managers and salespeople, what they consider low hanging fruit. They got rid of the project managers because there's no hurricane, not even thinking that we're probably set due from whether you look at Farmer's Almanac or weather predictions, NASA stuff, probably for one of the coldest winters we've had in 10 years. So we're going to have some polar vortexes this year. And you just got rid of the guy that can make you millions. And then with salespeople, it's like, okay, now you've cut out salespeople. Now, if they were low performers, you should have already gotten rid of them, not a one fell swoop clean house like I've been seeing on the internet is happening. But now what's going to happen is you're not making those client touches. Somebody else is going to, and it's the same thing with technology. If you're slow right now, this is the time that you got free time to train your staff on something new that's going to make you more efficient and make you more profitable. If you're paying this guy $25 an hour to be a tech in the field, do you need him spending an extra 2 hours that's really not filling out this paperwork and going through these programs, or can you cut that down to 15 to 20 minutes with him doing it while he's standing there on the job site? I mean, to me, and I don't know, to me, it's frustrating in some aspects, and because there's a lot of good contractors out there that just are not evolving, and they're gonna lose market share because they feel like for some reasons of frustration, whether it's finances or whatever, that they can't evolve. They don't have the time or the money to evolve. And the guys that are evolving are going to take that market share from them. And a lot of those guys are good contractors.
But Michael, that's every industry. That's just not restoration.
Yeah.
That is every business owner in the world today.
Yeah.
It's more competitive than ever. And if you're not planning for those slow periods by, building up your marketing and outreach to non-insurance work to cover it, if you're not planning for those times and planning to do the education of your teams and planning to scale and forecasting, these are fundamentals of a business operator. And before, you could probably get by as a contractor and not really an operator, but not in today's world. It has fundamentally changed. And those that embrace it, and we know Steve Glosnick, there's a group that has fundamentally changed and really embraced it. And I know hundreds of others. And you're right, they are winning right now. They're scaling their business.
Yeah. TJ is another one, that Patriot,
Yep.
was a small guy for a long time, and now all of a sudden he's growing rapidly and doing well. I've known those guys. A guy that works for him, John Hughes, and I've known each other now for about 8, 9 years, and used to work together. it's been fun watching companies like that grow by embracing new things and new challenges. And there's a lot of companies out there. I don't even want to feel like I've left them out because I can't name everybody that's doing a lot of good things. Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I see a lot of industry, a lot of businesses, are struggling, right now. But I think this is the time that you reinvest. Hopefully, you've been a good squirrel if you're a business owner listening to this, and put enough away. The most business owners out there are good people, and they want to try to get their guys at least their 40 hours a week anyhow. So why not put them into education and training if they're not on a job site making you money? And that's the thing. If you can do that and dedicate just a few hours a week, to education for your guys, whether it's in the books on the S500 or if it's with a new software that's going to improve your company, now's the time to do it, before, we get the freeze events and things like that. Is there anything else? I know you guys that's been pretty awesome about you that I think we failed to mention earlier is that, you guys now have an open API. I mean, that's part of your forward thinking and, wanting to share with everybody and make sure that we're all moving forward, that anybody can pretty much go on to GitHub and put your data points into their other softwares. And tell us a little bit about that. What led to that?
Yeah, right off the get-go, we saw the importance of building an open ecosystem because, again, one vendor cannot service all of the needs and complexities of this industry. It's just not possible. But if you can get best of breed to integrate, then it feels like a single system to the end customer, the restorer. And that's been the goal since day one is to work with, job management vendors, equipment vendors, remote monitoring vendors across the board. We're open to working with all parties to make sure that we have this seamless flow of data and that all of the critical data points are held true. So the timestamps, the geolocates, who captured the information, the stuff that's needed to really prove the validity of the report to the adjuster or the engineer or reviewer has to be maintained through these systems, which you can't do by manually moving data from one system to the other.
Yeah, and that's what's great. We haven't publicly announced it yet. I was actually going to get with you and see if we could do it maybe after the holiday, which is probably when I'll post this podcast anyhow. Is we're actually, even though there's a lot of areas that we do some things that are very similar, we're still going to integrate because one of the challenges that I've found, and I get it, it's kind of what we were talking about. If I got guys that are already using Encircle, that's what their guys know, that's what they're trained on. They don't have to go in and relearn a lot of my stuff. They can only learn part of mine, and then they can pull the Encircle data right over into our software. And that way there's no double work, and that's where the synergy, makes sense to me. And there are a lot of people that would say, oh my God, you're competitors, just because we do a few of the same things. We're a time and material forward software. That's our primary thing. But we also wanted to build in some validations. You guys, there are some companies I know that have been using you guys for almost 10 years. They've got everything built into it. Why force them to come in and redo their process and procedures? Now they can just add one component of us, and then we link our accounts and pull everything right in from Encircle, and there's no problem with that. Same thing. I'm working with companies like that are out there that do the same thing, two of them, and I've talked to both of them and said, listen, guys, I've got guys that use you. I've got guys that use you. I'm not going to just pick one of you. I'm going to integrate with both of you, because it's like you said, it's all about making things as easy for the restorer. In software companies that are pushing back against integration, I think are hurting themselves because why would I buy that product if none of my other stuff that I use is going to work well with it? And
Yeah,
so I
that's it.
think the future from a business model for people that might be in the software side is integrations, in my opinion. I mean, that's where it's all about.
Hands down, you're not going to get rid of Salesforce out of this ecosystem. Several large national restorers have brought that in. You're not going to get rid of PSA. There's lots of good systems out there, but what we have to make sure is that the data flows seamlessly across those systems. And anybody who's an outlier who doesn't want to integrate with the ecosystem, well, that's got to be called out. Restorers need to go, hey, is that right for my business? Because at the end of the day, the whole idea of one system to run your business by is not true. It
It's
just can't
not,
be done.
because we're not like you said, we're not a cookie cutter business. And, kind of like I explained to someone, they're asking me, why doesn't, Exactimate and systems like that, work for the commercial structure as well as it does for the residential? And I was like, there's because really, a lot of homes share the same type of building envelope structural wise when you get into this construction aspects. There's a lot that's very, very similar there in a home. When you get into a commercial building, that goes all completely out the window. You got server rooms that may have, 4 layers of 1 inch sheetrock to protect it from heat with its own cooling system. You got ante rooms in hospitals. You got glass structures. I mean, there's so many different elements that go into, this. And Exactimate don't pay for me to pull that DHU up 15 flights of stairs or across 2 parking lots because I had to park downtown. It doesn't cover that kind of stuff, so that's where time and material comes into play, and that's just on a daily basis, much less a catastrophic type of response thing. So I think it's great. I really love the fact that where you guys are going and that we share, the same thing, or really just trying to move the industry forward. I really would like to do this again with you, Paul, maybe in a couple of months or something like that, kind of see where we're at with everything. And I'm really
You bet.
interested in kind of seeing, as our trade show season starts in like February, I really would like to see a lot more companies like ours that are playing nicer with each other. There's some guys that are out there that are critical of everything except for their product. And we're beyond that in this day and time, I feel like. And I love seeing that there are people like you out there that think the same way I do.
My pleasure. I mean, it's a fun industry to serve. Um, yeah, the restorers are just such genuine people,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I love serving them. So empowering the restorer and giving them the choice, even with our open API, everybody can write to it, but it's the restorer who decides how they want to implement it. It certainly will help them with that, but it's giving them choice in their business so that they're in control. Because previously, it's been very difficult with certain members of the ecosystem mandating certain technology. I don't agree with mandates. Let the restorer implement what is going to allow them to operate the best and deliver a service in conjunction with carrier rules, with ISCRC standards, and the needs of the policyholder. So, whatever gets us there, I'm happy to do it, including integrating with people that may have competing components within their platform.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm an evolve or die kind of guy. And I feel like that's the only way we evolve as an industry. I'm only 6 months removed from that side of the world. And, I love everything that a lot of new companies are doing. And those guys that are trying to lock their product down, operations, and not willing to have conversations is crazy. One of the things I always loved about you guys, and we've tried to adopt the same thing here, is truly listening to our clients with user feedback to make improvements and changes to our software. I mean, I remember I would call you when I was just a project manager at a company and a guy you had just met at a trade show, but I would call you on your cell phone and you would freaking listen and answer the call. And I was always really blown away by that. And we try to do the same thing here. And I think that's the future is we're kind of moving back towards a true customer centric. If you're going to do great in the industry, you cannot be as automated and hands off and, oh, we got the best thing in the world. We're not going to change kind of attitude. That's going to kill you.
Yeah. Or we designed this product perfect. The restorer needs to adapt to our product. Like,
I
no.
hear that one a lot too.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. By the way, I spent lots of time in your shoes on some of the nastiest jobs, like a protein fires
Oh,
that lit up a mansion. And I'm telling you, in the middle of winter,
mm.
I had a whole new respect for the restorer. And I'm like, okay. And by the way, it was within the first 6 months of starting Encircle. I did that. And I worked for
Oh,
two
wow.
months on these projects just to understand what it's truly like. And it's tough. Like,
That is tough.
to get your attention on a piece of technology when you're dealing with this and a policyholder that is unglued. Like, the
Yeah.
policyholders were coming at me. I'm like, hey, I'm just a guy trying to learn here. You want to talk to that guy over there?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I learned exactly what it was like. And I'm like, no, this is very unique mobile technology that needs to serve this industry.
Yep, absolutely. And I always told my guys, when you're dealing with a homeowner and more so with homeowners than commercial structures, that is 9 times out of 10 their largest investment in their life. Plus has emotional attachment because they've raised their kids there, they've had their loved ones there, they got all these memories tied to it that's important to them. They're going to be in a bad mood. You cannot take that personal. You cannot get defensive. You've got to be apologetic and you've got to have empathy. And, part of that is, making sure you have the tools to do a good job for them, and reassuring them. And so I'm glad you had that experience. I mean, not to kind of backtrack, but I fell into the restoration world kind of by accident. I was running medical clinics in Florida and moved back home because our house had been hit by Charlie Francis and Gene. I had $196,000 worth of damage. And so we moved back home to Alabama from Florida. And there were no FQHCs, fairly qualified health clinics in the state at all. And so Mike was trying to figure out what he was going to do with his life now. And so I went back to college working on my master's and went to work for the green guys. I'll put it that way. I'll just say I went to work for Serpro as a sales guy. And here I am thinking I'm taking a professional sales position, and I show up on day one and, my nice clothes, and the guy's like, "What are you doing?" He said, "I told you we're going to have some on-the-job training. You need to go back home and put on your work clothes and your work boots. You're not touching one of my people for 3 months until you learn to perfect everything." And it was a shock, but I loved it and I've appreciated it to this day. And then I decided to flip from sales into the production side rather quickly because I fell in love with it. But that mindset I carried over with me for years that, you're not going to talk to my adjusters. You're not going to talk to my insurance agents and my consultants until you can actually describe to them what we do and understand it. So I really appreciated that. So I'm glad that you've gone out when you were starting Encircle and actually got some hands-on experience. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, I appreciate your time today. I definitely look forward to maybe catching up. We may try to do one live while we're at a trade show because I know the first of the year will be crazy busy for us, and maybe do a little bit shorter one on what experiences are going on. But I really have appreciated having you on.
Yeah, would love it. And thanks for having me on here. And 2026 is going to be an amazing year for products that we release. So anytime you want to do it, I'll have lots to talk about.
All right. All right. Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
This episode is brought to you by Helix Co., the most advanced time and material ecosystem for ROMs, time and material billing, job sharing, with digital records and much more. Check us out at www.helixco.io.